So how does a band that lasts for barely 2 years manage to launch like a half dozen Hall of Fame careers? We're talking about a group that was so brilliant and so volatile that they burned out almost as fast as they formed. This is the story of what might just be rock's most successful failure, Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah, you definitely know these words. They've become this go-to soundtrack for protest and social change pretty much everywhere. But the story behind this massive universal anthem, it actually starts in a very specific place, on one totally chaotic night on the Sunset Strip.
Okay, so picture this. It's November 1966. We're on the legendary Sunset Strip in Los Angeles, which was basically ground zero for the whole 60s youthquake. This cultural explosion where a new generation was really starting to push back against the old ways.
So what happened was, the city imposed this really strict 10 p.m. curfew on anyone under 18, and that effectively shut down the entire vibrant club scene for all the young people. As you can imagine, this led to huge protests, which, well, pretty quickly turned into clashes with the police.
And one band, caught right in the middle of it all, literally watched as the battle lines were being drawn, and somehow managed to turn all that chaos into the definitive anthem for their generation.
Yeah, this one song, for what it's worth, is exactly what launched Buffalo Springfield from being just another cool LA club band straight into the national consciousness.
Stephen Stills wrote the song pretty much on the spot after seeing the riots right outside the Pandora's Box nightclub. It just shot to number 7 on the charts, and its sound was absolutely unforgettable. You have that haunting, kind of bell-like harmonic from Stills' acoustic guitar, and then Neil Young's spooky, tremolo-drenched electric guitar riff comes in. It just perfectly captured the tension and became an instant, timeless classic.
But, and here's the crazy part, before they could write the anthem of the Sunset Strip, they had to, actually form a band. And their origin story is one of the most unbelievable, you couldn't make this up, moments in all of rock history.
I mean, the sheer dumb luck involved here is just incredible. Neil Young and Bruce Palmer drove a 1953 hearse all the way from Canada down to LA, specifically to find Stephen Stills. They searched for a week, found nothing, and just gave up. But as they were stuck in traffic literally leaving town, who drives past them? Stephen Stills and Richie Furay. They spot the hearse, pull a risky U-turn, and the band was basically formed right there on the street.
And this right here really shows you the unique mix of talent they had. It was a true continental synthesis. You had the American folk blues guys with Stills and Furay, and then you had the raw Canadian rock and roll energy from Neil Young, Bruce Palmer, and their drummer Dewey Martin. 3 Canadians, 2 Americans. This blend was the absolute key to their sound.
And their rise was just meteoric. I mean, look at this timeline. Just 5 days after that chance meeting in traffic, they had their first gig. Within a month, they were the talk of the town thanks to their residency at the Whiskey A Go-Go. By August, a big record deal with Atlantic, and by November, their first album was out. It was an unbelievable sprint.
But you know how it goes. That same creative fire that shot them to the top also had the seeds of their own destruction. The friction between the band's brilliant songwriters, it led to their greatest album, but it also tore them completely apart.
The problem started almost right away. Their bassist, Bruce Palmer, who was a Canadian citizen, gets arrested for marijuana and is deported. Then Neil Young, feeling artistically stifled, just quits the band right before their huge gig at the Monterey Pop Festival. I mean, the whole foundation was already cracking.
And you can hear this conflict perfectly on their second album, Buffalo Springfield again. You had these two geniuses just pulling in completely opposite directions. On one hand, Stills was making these tight, melodic R&B-flavored rock songs. On the other hand, Neil Young was creating these sprawling, experimental, almost avant-garde productions with orchestras and super complex arrangements. And this is the most telling detail of all. Their masterpiece album, it wasn't really a band album. It was basically a collection of solo tracks. They had stopped working together in the studio. Each guy was producing his own songs with outside musicians. The group was already a band in name only. So this brings us to the final, really dramatic act. The tensions were already at a breaking point, and one legendary night in the Hollywood Hills just pushed them right over the edge for good.
So the scene is this: a house up in Topanga Canyon. The band is hanging out, and they're jamming with a visitor who just happened to be in town with his band, Cream, Eric Clapton.
As you can imagine, they had their Marshall amps stacked high, and the volume was immense. Unsurprisingly, the neighbors called the police to complain about all the noise.
So when the police arrived and started making arrests, Stephen Stills, with some incredible quick thinking, managed to crawl out a bathroom window and just escape into the canyon before he could be formally processed.
But the others weren't quite so lucky. Neil Young, Eric Clapton, and the rest were arrested. Clapton later called it a night of hell, and during all the chaos and processing at the jail, Neil Young, who suffered from epilepsy, actually had a seizure.
The fallout was immediate. Just 46 days after that bust, Buffalo Springfield played their final concert and broke up for good.
So 2 years, 3 albums, and one very dramatic breakup. Sounds like a failure, right? Well, not exactly. In fact, their end was one of the most productive and important events in the history of rock music.
You see, Buffalo Springfield wasn't just a band, it was a supergroup incubator. Its breakup didn't end the music, no, it created a musical Big Bang. Just look at what rose from the ashes. From this one explosion, you get multiple new musical universes. Stills and Young go on to form the supergroup Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Richie Furay basically pioneers country rock with his band Poco, and their unique sound paved the way for giants like the Eagles. The legacy is just immense.
You know, maybe Glenn Frey of the Eagles put it best. They were the pioneers, we were the settlers. That's the perfect summary of their influence, isn't it?
So that's the big question I want to leave you with. Was this brilliant, chaotic, 2-year flash-in-the-pan a failure? Or, by giving birth to so much legendary music, was it actually the single most important breakup in the history of rock and roll?